Welcome back. This is still Property Menu and my name is Wala Bwalia. And for today, we are going to focus that is on the F&B Residential Property Report of the second quarter of 2021, where they've done an amazing job of actually doing the research and showing us exactly what the report has to offer in terms of property all around Namibia. I went through this specific report and I was very impressed to realize that land sales are declining as opposed to housing sales that are on the rise, with the central and northern regions showing majority contribution to this, with houses ranging in the 500,000 area being the ones being sold the most. Today on the show, we've got a guest that is all the way from Walvis Bay, a property analyst, Mr. Temus Kawela, who will be joining me in a Zoom meeting to break down the whole property report for 2021. Stay tuned, we'll be back right after this. The Property Menu, NBC TV Property Magazine, offers a wide variety of information, news, education. Whether your interest lies in buying, selling, or in making your house more cozy and classy. If it's home financing services you're interested in, or you're simply looking to increase the value of your property, the Property Menu is sure to expertly deliver. Welcome back. This is Property Menu. And as promised, there is a property market analyst all the way from Walvis Bay, Mr. Temus Kawela, joining us today to discuss the F&B Residential Property Report of June 2021. This is Property Education. Mr. Kawela, thank you and welcome to the show.
Thank you, Wala, for having me. Good afternoon.
Awesome. Mr. Kawela, let's jump right into it. Tell me, in your own opinion, in general, what has been the experience with regards to housing and land delivery in the country since 2010, sorry.
Thank you very much for the question. I would like to attend to this question by looking at Keating, who actually came up with a pyramid, which is Namibia's response to housing needs in 2013. In this pyramid, it's actually indicated as to how the land has been distributed in the country, which leads to housing. So therefore, there are certain categories that he has classified under the pyramids, where he actually came up with a high income category, then you have middle income category, and low income category, then you have ultra low income and social cases. Now, all these specific categories, which are 5, have channels where the lands are being distributed through, which leads to housing. So then, if you look at the first category, where now you have the masses of the people, you have people without income. But remember that everybody wants to be housed. So that, in fact, it's supposed to be attended, or it has been attended through the Housing Trust Funds and Sheikh Dwellers Federation. So that's one of the channels through which the social cases of people that are categorized without income are supposed to be assisted. Then under ultra low income category, who are earning less than 1,000, are also supposed to be assisted through Housing Trust Fund and Sheikh Dwellers Federation. Then the third category, which is low income, that is where Build Together program comes in, and again Sheikh Dwellers Federation. So that we are looking at people that are earning between 100 to 3,000 in terms of income. And then the fourth category, which is middle income earners, we are looking at people that are earning between 5,000 to 20,000. And those are the ones that are catered through NHE and other institutions. So this can also be through private developers. Then the last category, which is the high earning income, who are earning more than 20,000, are actually be assisted mainly through banks and other financial institutions and other players like private developers. Now, looking at how the land is supposed to be delivered or how it's supposed to be channeled to all these categories. Now, if you analyze, go back now to 2010 and below, or 2010 upwards. Before 2010, one would observe that all these specific channels usually gets priorities from the local authorities. But after 2010, we have seen a slight change or decrease in the land delivery through these channels. So what happens? If you look at these channels, are actually classified into two categories. You have private sector and you have public sector plus NGOs. Now, we have now then seen after 2010, we have seen a shift where the land delivery has much more actually pumped to the private sector. Then these public sectors and NGOs institutions have seen a slow reception of land. And then looking at the pyramids, these are the majority of Namibians, which has then caused a huge shortage or backlog in housing when it comes to Namibia. So the private sector mainly it only looks at a little bit of middle income and upmarket high earners. Those are the only people that are benefiting from the land delivery, mainly from 2010 up to today.
Yeah.
So it's maybe something that need to be relooked at so that it can be addressed.
All right. Mr. Kawela, I would actually like to applaud FNB for being a very progressive bank, for that matter, that they actually have a whole report on property. Now, based on the latest FNB residential property of June 2021, it indicated that despite the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic and the slight increase in property prices with over 9.6%, property sales have tremendously increased with 17% compared to 15% in previous years. What could be the case for this?
Good. I will give my opinion on that. If you look at 2019, 2020, then 2021, 2019, the market was still progressing. Everything was done accordingly. The market was functioning properly. But now in 2020, when we then experienced the COVID-19, you would note that we had a prolonged lockdown, which in fact withheld most of the progressing projects and transactions in housing, and not only in housing, in other areas of markets. So then, at least in 2021, the lockdowns has not been that very prolonged. And then at the same time also, in 2021, businesses have found many ways to do business while they are under the lockdown, compared to 2020, when it was just an eventuality, as a surprise to everybody. Business was withheld. So therefore, I believe that might have contributed to the difference between 2020 and 2021.
Mr. Kawela, owning a house really is something that installs a lot of dignity in any human being, for that matter. Do you think that in the next 12 months we should see a rise in people being able to restore that dignity for them to be able to own houses?
That will depend. If the custodians of the land in urban are to go back to the same formulas or the same formula that has been followed since the inception of the housing development in Namibia after independence, then definitely all the categories will be able to be catered. Simply meaning that if we can go back to make sure that those that, or let's say the channels like Short Dwellers Federations, the Build Togethers, the NHEs, and also the individuals that prefers to get plots and develop themselves, in addition to the private developers. If all these channels are prioritized, in simplest, let's say a local authority have developed 1,000 plots, then they must make sure that all these channels are actually benefiting proportionally. Then we will not have one channel or one category of market that is left behind.
So speaking of the whole land delivery, etc., we have noticed that home sales have increased, while as land delivery and sale of residential plots have reduced tremendously. Why do you think this is possible? How is this possible when home sales are going up, yet land sales are going down?
Good. Now, similarly, again, if I had to refer to my reference of where I cited that public sector versus private sector. Now that we have been distributing land to the private sector, instead following a balance between the two, now that has left the private sector with a huge, or it has actually allowed the private sector or private individuals to have more land. Some have more lands that they can't even develop. So now on the side of the public sector, which supposed now to look at these other channels of low-income earners and below, finds themselves without any land. So now the shortage of land distribution, it's because now most of the land it's in the private individuals. If you go to some local authorities, they might even tell you, no, we don't have land. But if you go around, you might say, but why at this area there is this area and that area that is not developed? If you go to the record, you will find that this land is owned by an individual, but it's not being developed.
Yes.
So now, in another way, these lands are locked up in private individuals who are at some point unable to develop. So then, in the market, the demand will continue to grow, seeking for houses. But whoever that can develop the house needs the land. You go to the local authority, the land is not there. You go to the private individual, you might raise some of them, but the price to buy it from them might be quite expensive. And this is also then to those that are managing to track these lands from these individuals or companies, then they are paying high prices, which at the end of the day, they will only end up developing houses for middle and high income earners and leaving out the lower income categories.
Yes. All right. Speaking of which, Mr. Kawela, let me ask you, being a property market analyst and specialist yourself, for anybody that is watching right now, let's say you live in Walvis Bay. Could you just tell us, where do you think is the best place to actually invest in terms of property? Would you say it's the wise idea to buy a property or invest in a property in a bigger town, or much rather into a smaller town?
Well, that will depend from individuals to individuals. You have individuals that are looking for residential houses or to have them as shelters. You have those that are looking for these houses or lands for business purpose. Now, obvious to somebody who is looking for a property to live in as shelter would definitely prefer where they are residing and where they are employed.
Yes.
So, however, to those that are looking for investment purpose, commercial purpose, might be able to look at both towns, small and big. But now, to those that are looking for properties where they can invest and have their investment grow, I think it's quite also very important that you look at the market. Which market has over-matured in terms of value or property values and prices, and which markets where the properties value and prices are not yet matured. So now, if for instance that you want your investments to grow, I would rather look at a small town that has a potential and that is growing, where I can buy a cheap land, invest less, but after 10 to 15 years, the less I have invested, it has accumulated or it has appreciated in value. Then in future, I can able to recoup my investments. But now looking at the bigger towns where you have over-matured prices in terms of land and housing, if you invest 1 million today into that property, it's not likely to appreciate in value over another million unless you have a gain to invest more. And that is what tells you that the market has over-matured.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kawela. Let me just ask you, when it comes to rental prices, the rental prices on the other end have actually stumbled into a negative, and with a slight decrease of 7.1%. On the other hand, compared to the previous year, what do you think might be the cause for this?
That I can link it to COVID-19 and the lockdown that has prevailed. Plus, the economy was also not doing well before 2020. Let's say from 2017, 2018, 2019, you see there were some experience already in the market where there's a slowdown in economic activities. However, COVID-19 made it very worse, where a lot of people lost their employment. Some they had their salary cut. So that made it a little bit very impossible to have more consumers or clients that are seeking for rentals. Rather than what happens, these people were leaving these apartments on a high volume, leaving now the landlords to have no choice but rather to listen the offer they are getting from the tenants or those prospective tenants. So now, when the prospective tenants has power, they will obviously influence the price to drastically reduce, because it's better to have somebody in there giving you less than having an empty property.
Yes.
So that is one of probably the reason why there has been a decline in rental prices and the declines in rental demand.
Mm-hmm. So, but surprisingly as well, despite the whole rental issue going down, there's actually a need for people to rent houses with more rooms. So there's like an increased desire for this since the year started. And could this be the effect of possibly shared communal rental schemes that people have in place for affordability purposes? Is it families that are growing? What is your take on this one?
I think you have it right there, where you are saying, can it be rooted to sharing property? Obvious, because now we have a lot of people that left because they are, or left apartments because they can't afford. So now definitely the market have to establish another response, which then basically that people have to group themselves, say, if there is a house that is a 2-bedroom or a 3-bedroom house, which is only 6,000 per month. If we are 3, then we are likely only to pay 2,000. But in the past scenario, each person could prefer to pay a 6,000 for that accommodation alone. So hence, definitely that should be one of the reasons why people have shifted to grouping and sharing accommodation.
Mr. Temus Kawela, I would like to thank you so much for enlightening us a bit more and just giving us analysis on the whole property market across Namibia. Mr. Temus Kawela, thank you very much for your time, sir.
Thank you very much for inviting me, and thank you very much for all the information that we have shared together.
Perhaps you have any final words, Mr. Kawela, regarding property in Namibia?
Yes, I will only say if our local authorities can go back and look at the pillars of land distributions that has been in existence, and then prioritize the land distribution through all the channels, whatever little that they brings on the table, let them share it with all the pillars in the market in terms of land distribution. Then we can able to feed every specific category with the little that is there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Temus Kawela, and good having you on the show, sir.
Thank you.
That's right. That was Mr. Temus Kawela, our property market analyst, all the way from Walvis Bay, enlightening us on the FNB Residential Property Report of June 2021. This has been Property Education. We'll be back right after this. The Property Menu, NBC TV Property Magazine, offers a wide variety of information, news, education. Whether your interest lies in buying, selling, or in making your house more cozy and classy. If it's home financing services you're interested in, or you're simply looking to increase the value of your property, the property menu is sure to expertly deliver. Welcome back, and most definitely a special thank you going out that is to Mr. Temus Kawela, our property analyst, joining us all the way from Walvis Bay, where he highlighted so much regarding the FNB Residential Property Report of 2021. In case you missed the show or you are looking forward to watching it again, you can find us on our social media handles, that is on Facebook, Property Menu, on Instagram, Property Menu, and you can check out the entire show, that is on YouTube, Property Menu. My name is Walvis Bay, and most definitely this has been another jam-packed show regarding property in and around Namibia. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll check you again next week. Thank you so much. Good night.